Hi, I'm Kevin Riley. I'm here in Osaka, Japan. I'm actually originally from Canada, Switzerland before that, but I've been here for just about 28 years. You're sitting in Kuma's kitchen, and this is where I shoot all my kitchen things. But that's not the only thing I do. There's a lot of different things. I guess when you live in Japan, you end up doing a lot of different things, and I do all kinds of stuff. Keeps me busy. Also keeps it interesting.
What part of Canada?
Actually, I lived all over British Columbia. My parents moved to Canada when I was a kid. I was 9 years old. We moved to Kamloops, BC. Then I moved to Victoria. I lived down there. I lived a couple of different places on the island. I lived in Vernon. I lived up in Prince George, which is like north and cold. And I was working on the railway, so I was up there for a while. So yeah, I've been all over BC. I never lived in any other part of Canada, just BC.
When you first came to Japan, you came here as a builder.
Yes, yeah. It was kind of a weird coincidence thing because I was supposed to go to Germany, right? So I was supposed to go and build a dormitory for Dresden University. And I speak Swiss German, but it's close enough to German that I could get by. And I figured, well, that'd be pretty cool, right? I'd be back close to my hometown of Klosters, and I'd probably go and visit and stuff. I was getting all ready to go to Germany, but it was taking a long time. What was happening was visas and stuff like this, because this was for a big company, and it was dragging on. So then what happened was somebody called me up and said, "Hey, I hear that you're willing to go overseas. How about Japan?" I'm like, Japan? Hadn't even been on the radar, right? I mean, I'd never even thought about it or anything like that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Japan. And he goes, Osaka. I didn't even know where Osaka was. The nice thing was, the guy was paying us $250 Canadian a day. Yeah, I know. Back in '96, this was really good money, right? I mean, for him, it was good because the yen was strong at the time. During the earthquake of '95, the big Kobe earthquake, or we call it the Awaji earthquake, he went over the next day to check on his mom who lived over in Kobe. And he had this 4x4. He was driving through. He was driving over things and stuff. He got out there and he went through this really devastated area. And he was like, whoa, the only thing standing here are some 2x4 houses that got built. So he's like, bing, light bulbs go off. I should be building 2x4 houses. And that's when he started getting Canadians over to build 2x4 houses and to teach his carpenters how to build 2x4 houses. So that's how we ended up here. And I say we're offered $250 Canadian a day, which at that time in Canada, there was no way you were going to make that kind of money. So we're like, hell yeah. Back in those days, I mean, we're talking 96, there was still a lot of guys here, the older guys, like a lot of the tradespeople we ran into and stuff. These have been people who had lived through, occupation times. Some of them, like one of the guys we worked with, he was a mechanic keeping the Zeros flying during World War II. These guys were pretty old, and they were not overly receptive to Americans. They weren't, didn't hate them or anything like that, but they weren't like buddy with them either. And so people used to come up to us and ask us. They just kind of had a straight look on their face and went, American, Jin? And we go, no, Canadian. Oh, the smiles would come out instantly. I mean, it was wow, Canadian. Okay. It was such a difference. It just opened doors for us, just being Canadian. And the other thing I remember he said that he really liked Canadian carpenters because what would happen was his Japanese carpenters, when there was a problem on, you're always going to run into problems on a construction site. There's some little tiny thing. And he said they would stop. There had to be a meeting. So he'd have to come out to the job site. There had to be a meeting. He said, I love you Canadians. When you get a problem, you just go around it and you keep going. and we'll figure the problem out later, you know. And I mean, that's the way we've always done things. So yeah, he really liked that. And that's why he was bringing us over here. But I think also at the time, because of the strong yen, it was also cheap for him to have us over here. At first, I was just working for somebody, right? But then after, I think about 2-3 years in, my Japanese had gotten to the point where I could go directly with a company. And I remember this one company, a buddy of mine, Japanese carpenter, he introduced me, or his father introduced me to this company, and they basically had a meeting with me, and they said, asked me questions and stuff. And it turned out that my Japanese was good enough at that point. I mean, it wasn't great or anything, but I could get by. And they said, yeah, we can communicate with him. And then I started contracting directly. So I was getting like about $10,000 a house for the framing and finishing work. I tell you, framing is a young man's game, okay? I wasn't exactly that young when I came here. It's hard. It's really hard on the body. You take a lot of punishment out there on the job site. Accidents happen. Like I had to end up in the hospital once. I had to go to the hospital. I didn't end up in the hospital. I just went there. They operated me for 2 hours because me and a circular saw had a slight disagreement. Just about took my thumb off. They dropped me out of this hospital, and they operated my hand. They wanted me to keep me overnight, but at the end, it's like, you're healthy, you can go home. Now, it shocks, especially Americans, how cheap it was to get that done. Because I was 2 hours in the operating room, and medicine and everything, and it cost me. I didn't have any insurance or anything, so I had to pay it out of pocket. It cost me $600, and it wouldn't have cost me much in Canada. In America, I've been told by some Americans I've met that it would have been tens of thousands of dollars. So why did I end up leaving construction? That was one thing. It is hard on the body. Yeah, I mean, I was getting older. But also what I found was that we had started off really, really good. Fantastic wood. We were getting wood here that was better than in Canada. And then, however, we're heading into a recession, right? 98 wasn't looking too good. I did construction until 2001, but it was starting to, things were down a bit. And I noticed that the materials were going down just a little bit. We're starting to get, we're getting some 2x4s from Russia and stuff like that, and they weren't quite the same standards. And I could see the writing on the wall. And at that point, I left construction. Somebody told me, why don't you become an English teacher? And I'm like, oh God, really? I'm sorry, but I had this super negative view of English teachers at the time, because I'd gone drinking at Balabushka, which is a little bar down in Osaka here, and I'd met English teachers, and it was like, my image was, these guys have got a job because they can speak the language. That was it, because a lot of them were like that. Nova was terrible. Had a really bad reputation. However, I got an interview with Berlitz, and I'd heard a lot of good things about Berlitz. My mother actually studied Italian with Berlitz, and I'm like, well, okay, so I'll go in for an interview. I don't think they expected what happened, because they were trying to interview me, but I turned it around. I was interviewing them. I was like, is this a company I want to work for? Is this somebody I want to get involved with? Do I really want to leave construction? And after the interview, I realized that, I could learn a lot here. And I did. I learned a lot from Berlitz, really. I mean, I got to say, in the end, I didn't want to keep doing that. But I'd learned a lot about, education and everything like that. So it was a really good learning experience. I think that's one of the things that I've always tried to do in a lot of my jobs, is just get something where you're learning something. So you're actually walking away after that job with something you can use. And I definitely did at Berlitz. So, hey, Berlitz, thank you. That did work out good. So, and that's where I met my wife too. Yeah, I mean, she was a student. So, we started going out together, and we've been married 20 years now. So we've actually been together for 23 years. Yeah. Whew. It's gone by real quick.
Where can we find your book about lowering blood sugar levels?
Oh my God. How do you know about that? I think it might still be on ClickBank. I'm not too sure. I wonder. I should look into that. I might have some money there. Yeah, yeah. I did a book on okay. I'm a total idiot here because I should have followed my own advice. So this was many years ago. What was it? It was when I first got involved in internet marketing. That's what really got me into internet marketing. So I found out I had. So my dad's got high blood pressure. My brother's got high blood pressure. It's inevitable. I'm going to get high blood pressure, right? Type thing. It's just it runs in our family. And I had a little bit of high blood pressure, but it wasn't greatly bad or anything. But I thought, you know what? I started doing research because I've always been into healthy eating and stuff. And well, yeah. So says he sitting here drinking his highball, but hey, I'm into health foods and stuff like that. I have been ever since like the 1970s, basically. And so I was like, okay, did some research. I started doing research. PubMed is a fantastic place to do research. You get all kinds of medical papers and stuff. And I started putting together this like a 12-week program, right, for lowering your blood pressure. And little things you can do. I think one of them I remember was laughter. Just enjoying, laughing, watching a comedy show, laughing can help lower your blood pressure because, it relaxes you and all that. And all the different things it does for your body when you laugh. I think the Lower Your Blood Pressure book got kind of left in the dust because I got really into internet marketing and I started doing more of that because people would ask me questions. That was the thing that really got me in was people would ask me questions going, hey, how do I do this? Because I had a lot of off internet background in it. So I could kind of bring stuff from the offline world into the online world and give people ideas. And that's why I started mucking around with creating guides and stuff like that and helping with internet marketing. And so, yeah, that blood pressure book kind of got forgotten about, unfortunately. It's a pretty good book, actually. It's and I say I should have followed it because a couple of years ago I found out that my high blood pressure had spiked pretty ridiculously high. I'm just lucky I survived it. My heart got to 60% bigger than it should be. Yeah, I was having a hard time breathing. That's what triggered it off. I went to see my doctor finally, and he said, "Oh, it's nothing wrong with your lungs." And he said, if you hadn't been in such good shape, he said you'd be in a hospital or dead. I'm like, oh, okay. That's why I took things a little seriously. So yeah, I do follow some of the stuff in there that I taught, like, trying to keep sugar down, of course. I mean, people talk about fats and stuff. I know a lot of people are always into, low fats and thing. I'm like, dude, there's nothing wrong with fat. Sugar will kill you, So I'll try to keep sugar down. There's obviously a little bit of something like this, but I think everything in moderation. And I think that was probably one of the things I really pushed in that book too. Everything in moderation. Yes, you want to do these things, but you don't want to do it to the point where you don't enjoy life. I mean, come on, what's the use of living longer if you're not going to enjoy it, right? So, you got to go with the balance.
Do you want to sort of brush on maybe like the benefits, what motivates you to be Datsusara, what motivates you to be freelance and just being, having your own business, right? Just doing all these different kind of projects. What are the benefits? What's driving you?
Sure, yeah. This dates back to 1976. So a buddy of mine needed a ride to the recruiting center for the Canadian Armed Forces. And I gave him the ride. Now, while I was there, while he was taking some tests, I took some tests. Because I ended up joining up. So the two of us joined up. We went to Cornwallis. We were in the Canadian Armed Forces for boot camp. Now the thing was, I loved part of it. I loved the physical part of it. Like I got high on the training, the running, the circuit training and stuff like that. I really got high on that stuff. But I found that I didn't like taking orders. I got into arguments a couple of times. So once with a master corporal, I knew right, and this guy was huge. He was a big guy. I was a skinny kid back then. And this guy, I already knew because we'd been studying. We learned, what you're supposed to say. And it was, you say, yes, corporal. You never said, yes, master corporal. Well, he wanted me to say, yes, master corporal. And I'm like, oh, you're wrong, corporal. Right? And my friend's like, what are you doing? This guy's big enough, he could break you in half. Why are you arguing with him? I'm like, because he's wrong and I'm right. So that was number one. Number two was I remember the sergeant at one point went going by, and I guess I don't know what I'd looked like, idiot type thing. He said, "You look at me like that again, and you're off to the brig," type thing. I'm like, ooh, right. Third one was we're coming out of swimming, and we had to get back into we didn't have like these, not the fancy uniforms, the everyday work uniform, which is kind of like, the Japanese word dasai, not exactly stylish. And we're putting this on, and the guy's like in my face, hurry up type thing, and I punched him. He was my squad leader. You're not supposed to do that, but he was just annoying me. Now, fortunately, I didn't get caught because we all looked the same with our buzzed haircuts. I covered my name tag right away, and I got away with it. They were looking for me. And at this point, it dawned on me, I thought, this is not for me. If I stay in the military, I would have been in for 5 years. I probably would have spent most of that 5 years in prison. I'm like, it's just this. I was not good at taking orders and being told what to do. So I went and talked to my warrant officer. And fortunately, my warrant officer's name was Riley. Like, how lucky is that? Right? He'd already heard about me because I've been getting straight A's on all the exams. And he's like, yeah, I've been wanting to meet this Riley who's been getting straight A's type thing, right? And I said, I want out. You could get out in first 4 weeks. After that, you're stuck. So he said, well, you're the kind of guy, you'd make sergeant in no time. And I'm like, no, I just don't think the life's for me. Because it doesn't matter what rank I attained, somebody would be telling me what to do. And I just don't jive with that. So I went, the guy was great. Warrant Officer Riley, if you ever see this, you're a fantastic person. He's probably passed away. I mean, God, it was a long time ago. But the guy actually gave me a 4F, which is a failure, but with honors. So they paid my flight home. And I thought that was pretty cool of him, I flew home on one of the very first Lockheed L-1011s. It was like, ooh, I'm in style now. Like, I've gone from military to this stylish plane. They brought me my dinner. I'm starving. She goes, would you like a second one? We've got extras. I'm like, oh, yes, because this is not military food. So I got back to Kamloops. I was still living in Kamloops at that time. And I worked a series of jobs. Like I worked at Sid Smith Automotive, changing oil and stuff like that. And it did things, but I just found that, working for someone else was not really my way of doing things. It was not what I wanted to do. And so even back then, I started doing a lot of entrepreneurial things. I made hot tubs at one time. Yeah, don't get too excited. They leaked. That was when hot tubs were really big, right? And I thought we could make these. Just never quite stopped leaking water. So that didn't do too well. Built greenhouses. That went okay. Did a bunch of things like that. I was always doing something. So the entrepreneurial spirit, probably I got it from my dad too. My father was always an entrepreneur. He had a real estate company down in Los Angeles, and I went down and worked for him for a little bit. But again, didn't want to work for him. I wanted to do my own thing. So yeah, I think the entrepreneur has always been there, and I can't really see myself going back to work for somebody. I like what I'm doing now. Like when I do tours for the travel company, because I'm contract. I say yes or I say no. Okay, yeah, I'll take that job. Cool. I get paid contract. And I'm out there doing my own thing. I do my tours the way I want to do them. There's a bit of an outline as to where to go, but I do it my way. I want to make people happy. They're having a good time out there. We're flexible. I'm very flexible. Somebody says, I want to go to a bonsai garden. We go to a bonsai garden. Whatever, It's cool because I get to see different places too. I like that. I've been to the noodle factory 3 times now. Make our own noodle cups. so yeah, being an entrepreneur, man, it gives you a lot of freedom. And I think it's rubbed off on my wife too. She's a freelancer now. She teaches, but she loves doing it her way. Yeah, and neither of us can be told what to do. Really, we're not very good at that. I don't dare tell her what to do. Oh boy. I don't know what it's like exactly in all countries, but I know in Japan, taxes. Like when you've got your own business, you can write off so much. And that's fantastic. I mean, it's really good. When you're working for a company, you get a paycheck. That's you get taxed on that. You can't write off anything, right? That's it. However, when you are self-employed, yeah, you can write off all kinds of stuff. Let's go back to building houses, right? So let's say I'm building a house. I get paid a certain amount of money to build this house, right? However, it costs me money. I had, speaking him in over here, going to use him soon anyways, an employee. I had an employee who worked with me. I had to pay him. That's an expense. I had a vehicle that I drove, this little van that I used to use. Now, highway tolls, vehicle upkeep, gasoline, all these things are expenses. Now, when you do this, when you're driving a car to your everyday job, you don't get to write those expenses off against this, right? This is your everyday job. However, when I'm getting this much money for this house, I can deduct this. I can deduct all that vehicle expense, tools. So suddenly, I've reduced the amount of money that is taxable income. All right. Taxable income is what you pay your tax on. You don't pay tax on all the money you made that year. You pay on the taxable income. So the more you can reduce that taxable income, the less tax you have to pay. And also, I mean, there's that point where you're in different tax brackets. So being self-employed means you can deduct a lot of things. This room we're sitting in right now, right? I rent this. This is a cheap old building. But the rent I pay every month on this is 100% deductible because I don't live here. This is used for business. Now, our apartment, we have 65 square meters of apartment. I don't know exactly how much of that is office, but that amount of office is a percentage. We calculated this many years ago. That's a percentage of our building. So that means, let's say it's 30%, okay? Just 30%. Now, I can deduct 30% of monthly rent, because we rent, it's an apartment building. 30% of gas bills, 30% of electricity bills, 30% of the water bill. Every expense that goes into this place, this office here, that percentage can be deducted because that is being used as an office for our business. So yeah, expenses are fantastic when you've got your own business. You can write off many, many things. I look around here, I look at all the things I can write off. The groceries, Kuma's kitchen, because I cook foods in here and also have to test my recipes, see how they work out. That means groceries can be deducted. And yet we can eat that food afterwards. Ooh, that's dinner. Everything I cook here, I carry home afterwards and we have for dinner. So, hey, there's a lot of benefits when you have your own business, all the different things you can write off. I started cooking when I was like 6 years old. My mom was a really good cook. She was, I remember friends coming to our house and we'd just have a regular dinner, right? And they'd be like, what's the special occasion? I'm like, what do you mean? The food. I'm like, we eat like this all the time. I thought people ate like that. I grew up thinking that people ate like that. And it turned out they didn't. Most of my friends, they ate basic foods. And my mom was a gourmet cook. So I learned cooking at her side. When I started learning more about video, I started playing with video more. That's when I started this. And I love mucking around with recipes. Like I do get some inspiration from Pinterest. Pinterest pops up in my mailbox a lot, and I'm like, oh, let's have a look. And I see something, I go, oh, wait a second. Now, if I took that, changed it around a little bit, and did this and did that and did this, and next thing you know, I've got a recipe. What was the recipe last week? You remember? What did I put out last week? Oh, the bread. Yeah. The bread, yeah, soda bread. So I've done soda bread a couple times, and what was in that soda bread? Oh, birchermuesli. Right. I saw somebody doing a soda bread with oats. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. I've done birchermuesli cookies before. Now, birchermuesli, for those of you who don't know, is a very Swiss thing. It's I grew up on birchermuesli. It's oats and wheat flakes and raisins and some of those dried apples, little fruit things and stuff like that, different nuts and stuff. And we always ate it. We ate it with yogurt, but for a real treat, whipped cream. Oh, there's nothing like doing a big bowl of whipped cream and mixing that in and eating it just like that. Before I go to the gym, about an hour before, a bowl of birchermuesli, extra power. Gives you a lot extra strength. So I thought, okay, birchermuesli in soda bread, easy to make, and hey, it turned out really good. We just finished eating the last piece the other night with a lot of butter. Yeah.
So for your Kuma's Kitchen channel, what kind of audience is following and watching your videos?
Yeah, I've got a very international audience. It's in English, so that means I've got people all across the world. It's kind of cool because I get to meet some of these people. That's really fun. I was over in London for a business trip. Oh God, it was 6-7 years ago. And this guy came from Manchester just to buy me lunch. He's a policeman in Manchester. And it was so funny because the guy says to me, he comes all the way to Manchester and he says to me, I'm a police officer. I deal with all kinds of people. I interview them and everything like that. He said, but the most nervous I've ever been is meeting you. And I'm like, dude, I'm just a regular guy, right? I mean, I don't know what it was. I mean, we've gotten to know each other since. We're good buddies now. He's come to Japan twice now and met up with me here and all. But it was so cool. Like this guy, he said he loved my channel and he wanted to buy me lunch because his girlfriend had gotten bored with his cooking. Like he was always cooking the same thing, right? I mean, English, I'm saying, I know I have a brother-in-law who's English and, they're not the most creative cooks. So he said, I started cooking your recipes and my girlfriend loves it. And in fact, I see her often. Now they're married now. They got married and everything. So I take full credit for that. She will comment. She'll see one of my videos and she'll comment on that. She'll tag him and say, make this. So yeah, they like I say, he took me to lunch in London. It was cool. He came over here and we went hiking together. Then the second time he came over here with his girlfriend, I couldn't understand what she said. She's from a different part of Manchester. Did you know there's 2 accents in Manchester? I could understand him. I had a hard time understanding her. We're on the subway riding together. I'm like, oh my God, what is she saying? And he told me, he said, yeah, she's from a different part of Manchester. She talks different. Like, oh, okay. I've since kind of got used to her way of talking. But yeah, so he actually proposed to her here in Japan. We were the first people to know about it, my wife and I. Yeah, it was pretty kind of cool. Yeah. So I do get to meet all kinds of cool people. I've got a guy, the last renovation I did in Kyoto, that was the guy is the son of one of my patrons. I have patrons through patreon.com. And this guy is a patron. He lives in Seattle. He loves my cooking. He's always commenting and on there and stuff. He's come over here. He cooked in here one day. He made a pasta sauce in the kitchen here, and he just had a great time. I brought this out for him to use, the katana, to chop up an onion. He thought that was the coolest thing. He had so much fun with that. That's actually a guy who lived upstairs left that for me. It's a cheap one. It's not a real katana. You wouldn't want to hit things with it, probably bend, but it's kind of cool. And so there was him. I've had a chef from Colorado come here. He loves the stuff on my show, and he brought me a bunch of charcuterie, his own charcuterie. He makes all the stuff. Oh, so good. He made all kinds of great stuff. I got a couple of guys who are kitchen organized. No, okay. God, I forget what exactly they do. They're like kitchen managers. That's the word. Yeah, they're kitchen managers in the States. They have parties. The two of them will sit down every week, have a dinner, and watch my show and get inspiration from it. I mean, I think that's so cool. It's like these guys are, like these are kitchen managers. They get inspiration from my show. I think that's the coolest thing. Just things like that. I got this guy in Canada, Jason Bourgeois. He's been my top patron, my top fan, really. I mean, this guy, he's always telling people about my show. He's always in there promoting it and stuff. And I'm really looking forward. The next time I get to Canada, I want to meet up with him. So John Dobb told me about Patreon. And I'm like, he's doing quite well on it. So I wrote this book about internet marketing. My buddy wrote a book too. And we decided that we'd have this really cool book launch because Hooters had just opened up in Tokyo, Akasuke Mitsuke. We went to the Hooters and we thought, it'd be fun, right? We're going to have a book launch at Hooters. This be different, right? So we went there and John Dobb was there doing some show he was working for NHK at the time. I think it was still NHK, yeah. It wasn't his own channel yet. And my buddy knew him because he lives up near Tokyo. And so he introduced me. And it was kind of cool. We get to know the guy and all that. And that was it. Then, must have been months later, he contacts me. He says, do you know somebody who could be a camera? I need a cameraman. I'm going down to Okayama and I'm shooting the Naked Man Festival. And I said, oh, I could be your cameraman. That'd be kind of cool. So I didn't know he had this massive camera. This thing is huge. I'm running around with this thing on my shoulder. I think I learned a lot about filming then because he did kind of say, your zoom ins were a little quick and all that. I'm like, oh, sorry. But I filmed the whole thing. He was running around in nothing but a fundoshi, a loincloth, in the freezing cold, people throwing cold water on them. I'm running around, I'm sweltering because I'm in a winter jacket. But they gave me this yellow armband. I could go anywhere. It gave me full access. I'm inside the temple and stuff like this. This is so cool. I'm filming everywhere. And that's how we first really got started. That was pretty cool. We got to do some cool things that way. So we've worked together on a bunch of different projects and more to come yet in the future, I'm sure.
Okay. Wrap up. What's your favorite Japanese word or phrase?
Mendokusai. Which is my favorite word, which is my wife's least favorite word to hear. Because, for you guys who don't know mendokusai is like, it's too much bother, right? I learned that way back. And so, it'd be like, oh, just do this. Mendokusai. And you have to say it with feeling. You can't just say mendokusai. You go, mendokusai.
What's your favorite Japanese food or restaurant?
Ooh. So you might have actually seen this episode with John Dobb, or go look for it if you haven't. But down the road from here, just about a block down, is Chio. Chio makes okonomiyaki. Okonomiyaki is a very Osaka food.
What do you miss about Kamloops, British Columbia, Canada?
Kamloops. Actually, I mean, I make fun of Kamloops sometimes, but really the hills are beautiful. It's like rolling hills, sagebrush, very dry. And you've got ponderosa pine. I think I missed riding the range. Like I was a cowboy all through my teen years. I rode the range with the cowboys, learned some really good English from them, which my mother was not always happy about. Because, we just moved from Switzerland. I was still learning English. And it's easy when you're 9 years old. I learned English soon. And then, of course, I hang out with these cowboys. I'm like, I remember the one time, can I swear on the show? I'm riding my horse, and the horse did something stupid. I had this horse that was a really annoying horse. I'm whacking away, you goddamn cocksucker. And my mother looks at me, she's like, where did you learn words like that? And I'm like, oops.
What was the lowest point of your life in Japan?
Okay. Did you overcome it? Yeah. No, definitely. All right. So, I was living in Daikokucho. I'd gone through a breakup, with my ex-wife. I have grown-up kids living in Canada, so that was kind of tough because they were still young at that time. And I come to Japan. I got this little tiny place in Daikokucho. It's tiny. It's not much bigger than this place here. And I remember this bathtub. I had to cross my legs just to get into it. Not much bigger than a sink, really. And this tiny little kitchen and all. But it was mine. It was kind of cool. I loved it. I felt like I was a college student. Here I am. I'm 38 years old at the time, right? Now I feel like I'm a college student. I'm starting all over again type thing. I mean, I'd left everything behind. I had nothing. I had some clothes, some tools. That's it. I made all my own furniture. I bought a TV for 5,000 yen off some guy down in Nishinari Ward, things like that. So I'm doing okay, but it's kind of weird, right? Then we hit the recession. I think it was late 97, early 98. Things started getting bad. And we'd built some houses for this guy, and he takes us out to Osaka Park for a barbecue. Ooh, how nice. It's all to soften us up, to give us the bad news that he can't pay us. I'm like, dude, you could at least spend the money on that you spent on your barbecue. So yeah, he was like, I'm bankrupt. I'm like, oh, great, lovely. So are we. We didn't get paid for another job. I spent a whole week eating nothing but rice. And nothing. I had nothing to go with my rice. I had a bag of rice, so thank God for that. Otherwise, I would have starved. I was eating rice and nothing else. And I think that was kind of the low point right there, because it was like, I'm starving. I'm surviving on a bowl of rice a day. Kind of like that Dead Kennedy song, Holiday in Cambodia. You'll be happy on a bowl of rice a day. Yeah, that was me. So, that was kind of a low point. But hey, I survived it. Fortunately, the guy I was working with, his girlfriend was into pachinko, and she hit the jackpot. Yeah, she won 70,000 yen one night. We ate good that night. He called me over. We had whiskey. We had steaks. We were like, yahoo! We got money. We're eating well tonight. I mean, it didn't last, but it was tough years. It was the first couple of years there when that recession hit was tough years. But hey, we survived. I mean, unlike people who were jumping out of windows and stuff. So hey, I figure I did okay.
Lastly, any parting message or advice or any last word to fellow Gaijin?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a couple things to keep in mind because we had people come here. Some people loved Japan, some people hated it. It's not for everybody. There's certain ways of doing things, and that doesn't go good with everybody. I think being flexible, like maybe for me I was lucky because I grew up in Switzerland. We moved to Canada. I remember when we went to Canada, my stepfather said to us, now we are Canadians. We have to leave Switzerland behind and be Canadians because that's how we will fit in here. And I'm like, okay. So I think that really, that advice kind of carried through because when I came to Japan, I became Japanese. Like I mean, in a lot of ways, I'm very Japanese in a lot of ways. Like all my money in my wallet is right side up, things like that. I mean, I do all kinds of things like that. Like, I right away, I didn't fight the culture. I accepted the culture. And that's what you have to do. If you want to do well here, accept the culture. Just, it's going to be different. There's going to be things you're going to go, oh my God. And yeah, I mean, there are things that still, even today, I think, like some days, oh, could you learn how to drive? Or, because there are some terrible drivers here. Or could you walk faster? Oh man, why do people walk so slow? Now, I'm a fast walker. I always have been, and people walk slowly down the sidewalk. I'm like, get out of the way. So, patience. I noticed that today with the people I had today, and I've noticed that a couple times with my customers, is that they're very impatient because they come from a society, especially America. America is a lot like that. I've noticed that with Americans, that they're very impatient. They want things now. And I'm like, it's not the way things work here. Be patient. It'll come. For me, life here is super easy. And yet I know many people who complain and say it's not that easy. And I think it's because they want this, but what they're getting is this. And you just got to, okay, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. When in Japan, do as the Japanese do. And life will be so much easier.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're so welcome. Thank you very much. This has been fun.
Sorry, forgot one more segment.
Ooh, yeah.
Which is paid forward.
Oh, yes.
I told you.
Yeah, I feel really bad. Hang on.
With the previous guest.
Ooh, that's stuck. Okay. Oh.
So this is his own hot sauce.
Oh, wow. Oh, habanero. I love it.
Yeah.
Philip Wu's habanero hot sauce.
This is him. His name is Philip Wu.
Yeah.
And he is actually quite legendary keyboardist.
Oh, cool.
He was the keyboardist for Maze.
Yeah.
He also toured with Whitney Houston.
Oh, really?
And that's just the beginning. He got recruited by Grover Washington.
Yeah.
And he lives in Tokyo.
Cool.
So he was my previous guest, and he makes hot sauce on the side.